Okay, so today we are going to look at how we measure educational success and failure. So we're looking at how the government wants teachers to assess children, whether these assessments are actually working, and in class we're going to spend quite a lot of time evaluating the advantages and disadvantages of national testing. So first question is, how do we assess students? Well, in 1988, the Education Reform Act was a law that was brought in by the government, and this law introduced two things. It introduced the national curriculum, which is a prescribed set of subjects and content that must be studied by all state school children. And secondly, it introduced Ofsted, which is a group of inspectors who come in and inspect schools to check that students are making enough progress and that schools are doing a good job. So, as well as the national curriculum, in 1988, the government brought in quite a lot of different types of standardized testing that all children need to do. Until 2008, students were tested at the ages of 7, 11, and 14 with SATs, and then at 16 with GCSEs. In 2008, however, the government decided to drop the SATs exams that was sat by 14-year-olds, so that's a year 9. These SATs are standard tests that are sat across the country by all students of those ages, regardless of what their school is. But the more interesting question is, why do we assess students? Why are assessments important in your education? Do assessments help you? Do they sometimes hinder you? Do they help you know what to improve on? Or do they sometimes knock your confidence? I would pause the video for a few seconds and try and think of as many reasons as you can as to why we assess students. Why is it important to do tests? Well, some of the reasons are listed here. National testing gives teachers information about students' progress, what they need to improve on, or what they need to do better in. National testing also keeps teachers accountable, and this basically means that teachers have to teach the right stuff and teach it well. And if they're not doing a good job, then the students don't do as well in the tests and the teachers get into trouble. And finally, national testing gives governments essential data of league tables. Now, league tables are literally just lists of schools that are ranked from the best to the worst, and this is based on how well their students do in GCSE exams. This kind of league table gives students a lot of information as well as parents about the success of each school. It may help parents decide which schools to send their students to. However, these league tables can also sometimes not be very helpful because different schools are teaching different kinds of children, and there are lots of other things to think about as well. This brings us on to the very important question of, are league tables and national assessments always that useful? I'm going to show you two videos now, and as you watch it, I'd like you to write down as many disadvantages as you can when looking at the damage that league tables and national assessments can have.
My first job in Britain was at a school where I was classed as the SATs booster teacher, the SATs being the national curriculum test that they have in the UK. And my job pretty much was to withdraw groups of children, and these were children who were in year 2, so they hadn't even sat an exam before, and most of these children were 7 to 8 years old, and I would withdraw them and teach them the test pretty much. As a whole school, the staff in particular felt that so much rested on this one test, even from the really younger grades. When I was teaching reception, which are 4-year-olds, and year 1, which are 5-year-olds, part of my job was to predict what the SAT score was going to be for those children. So even though they didn't sit those exams until they were 7 or 8 years old, I had to give a prediction of where those children were going to come out when they were still 4 or 5 years old. As the test time came near, the teachers felt that this very crowded curriculum, things had to go just to get ready for the test. So these teachers were very dedicated teachers, really trying hard to give the students a balance, but they said there's just no way around it. Like, they felt that pressure of having to perform well. Schools weren't ranked just according to national results. They were also categorised into boroughs or learning education authorities, and we are compared to the local schools. So if you know that you're trying really hard to come out of a bad situation, you're really making improvements in the school, but your school is still ranked at the bottom or near the bottom of the ladder, I mean, that's just devastating. It's devastating to the teachers, it's devastating to the parents, and if the children are old enough to understand, they think, well, you know, we tried our best and this is where our school ends up. If a school's not performing well and they get ranked poorly, it just ruins the reputation of that school. It can take an instant for a school to lose a good name, and it can take years and years to rebuild that good name. I've been in schools where there's over 80% overseas teachers, so if a school is performing badly, or if it's ranked quite low, or it has even a bad reputation for whatever reason, we have teachers who come in from overseas, teach there for a short amount of time and go travelling, or they teach there for a year or two and go back to their own countries. One school I worked at in particular, and it was in a very low socio-economic area, and sometimes I felt we just did what we could to get through the day, especially with so many children in the class. And I think to help a community like that, it wasn't effective to have them ranked 99 out of 100 on a league table. Money needed to be put into helping the community, helping the school to help the community, helping the parents support their children, having other programs in place to support the teachers and the children in the class. The league tables in Britain pretty much have turned the national tests not as a mark of measure of how the children are doing, they're just used as a way to measure schools against each other. Now, if we were to adopt that system and use that system here, we would use our NAPLAN results not to highlight children who need the help, not to highlight areas within a school that needs support or improvement. It would just become a competition, and that would be it. It would be us competing with other schools, trying to get the enrolments, trying to win parents over, and then that has nothing to do with the well-being of the children or the whole education approach of the child.
One day I saw my son. I was watching him having a hard time with so many other things that normally he's at ease with. He was losing that shine, you know, he had in his face.
Any parent who's been through this with their kid can tell you it's like the worst few weeks of your life.
He'll be like, I can't do it, and I keep trying to teach him there's no such word as you can't.
The fear that testing creates has cut his potential for so many other things.
I can't imagine why it takes 6 days, 70 minutes each day to literally find out what my child knows in reading and math.
If you think about a third grader, they're 8 years old.
He's 8 years old. He's just 8 years old. You know, why do you want him to sit for 70 minutes and take a test? Every child learn at a different rate. Every child learn in different styles.
The results don't come out until, June.
The student is already out of that grade.
The idea that that's going to give you some meaningful information about who a kid is and that you're going to make these huge decisions based on that is crazy.
It doesn't prove what they've learned. It doesn't prove what's needed to help the things where they're having weaknesses at. The test is just a test.
They're using them for promotion, and they use it to evaluate his teacher, and then they use it to judge the school as a whole.
I find myself as a mom wondering who's benefiting from this amount of testing and this length of testing. I don't think it's the kids.
There's a company called Pearson who has created these tests.
They're a for-profit company. When they're weighing a choice between the best thing for education they always have to weigh in, how is this going to affect the profitability of this company? They've taken students and they've completely taught them how to write the same paragraph. And if you don't write the paragraph in this manner, then you're not going to get as high a score on their test. So now we don't have any more creative writing.
We don't have music anymore. We don't have sports anymore. We don't have art anymore.
All the talk about higher standards or, critical thinking, I'm all for that. I don't think that you're going to get to those higher standards by throwing tests at children.
There are people in power making decisions about my children in public school, while the vast majority of their children are in private school. Private schools are not required to participate in high-stakes testing. They essentially opt out.
We're refusing to take the test.
We're refusing the test.
We're out.
We're out. We're not taking the test. He will survive.
Education should bring that light to a child's face.
We all come together. There's an enormous amount of power in that.
I do think opting out does send a strong statement.
The more of us there are, the more power we have. Parents are really the ones that are going to drive this forward.
We can all opt out.